Hello everyone. In today's session, we will be doing a quick revision of active and passive voice. So let's start. So the first and the foremost thing that we learned that every sentence with a transitive verb has a subject and an object. So every sentence where there is a transitive verb, remember transitive verb. So every sentence where there's a transitive verb must be there a subject and an object, right? For example, the lion killed the deer. So in this sentence, the lion is at the subject's place as well as it's the doer of the action, right? The lion is the performer of the action. And what about the deer? The deer is at the object's place and a receiver, and it's the receiver of the action, right? So the lion is the performer and the deer is the receiver. Fine? Now, when the doer of the sentence or the performer of the sentence is at the subject's place and the receiver is at the object's place, in that case, we call the verb to be in active voice, right? So when is a sentence in active voice? When the performer is at the subject's place and the receiver is at the object's place, right? Now, this sentence can be changed into passive voice as well. Now, how? As I told you earlier, the subject and the object, they just interchange their place, right? So, the receiver of the action, which is at the object's place in active voice, becomes the subject of the passive voice. And similarly, the subject, that is the performer of the sentence, becomes the object of the becomes the object of the sentence. So how? Let's see. The deer was killed by the lion. So in this sentence, the deer, which is the object of the active voice, becomes the subject of the passive voice. Fine? And the lion, which is the subject of the active voice, becomes the object of the passive voice, right? So now we can say here in the second sentence, the verb is in passive voice. So I hope all of you remember this. Further, we also read that when when an active voice is changed into passive voice, there are certain other changes as well. Now let's see what are those. So an auxiliary, that's a helping verb, gets added. Then the main verb takes its past participle form, that is the third form of the verb, and a preposition is also added. Generally, we add the preposition by, right? And we also read that pronouns also change their form. I becomes me, then we becomes us, then you remains the same as it is. Then in third person singular number, he becomes him and she changes to her, and in plural number, they becomes them, but it remains the same. So these are the changes which take place in pronouns. And we also learned that if the subject in active voice is less important than the object, then in that case, when we change the sentence into passive voice, we may omit the subject of the active voice, right? Now let us further see the different, how we change the sentences from active voice to passive voice as per different tense forms. So let us begin with the simple form, that is simple present tense, simple past tense, and simple future tense. So in simple present tense, the lion kills the deer. Here we see that the verb is in simple present tense. So when we are changing it into passive voice, how will we change? The deer is killed by the lion. So the object here becomes the subject here, and the subject here becomes the object over here. And what about the changes in the verb? The auxiliary is added, that is a helping verb is added. The main verb changes into past participle form and the preposition by is added, right? So this is where we need to focus, right? Rather, we may say here. Next, simple past form. The lion killed the deer. Here the verb is in simple past tense. I have kept the same sentence so that your recapitulation becomes easier. Fine. So the lion killed the deer. Here the verb is in simple past tense. So when we are changing it into passive voice, so the same process, the same rule. The object here becomes the subject and the subject here becomes the object over here. And apart from that, an auxiliary is added, that is a helping verb is added as per tense, and since this is in past, the auxiliary will also be in past. Then the main verb takes the past participle form and the preposition by gets added. Similarly, when we take a look at the simple future tense, so again the same rule is applicable. The lion, which is the subject, becomes the object of the passive voice, and the deer, which is the object in active voice, becomes the subject of the passive voice, right? And after that, since the sentence is in future form, so will be there, and we add the auxiliary be, right? And as per rule, the verb takes its third form, that is the past participle form, and the preposition by gets added. So I hope the simple form of tenses is clear to you. How to change the sentence from active voice to passive voice if they are in simple present tense, simple past tense, and simple future tense. Now moving ahead to the next tense form. The next tense form is the continuous form, that is present continuous tense and past continuous tense. So before I explain again, let me tell you there is no passive form of future continuous tense, right? There is no passive voice for future continuous tense. So going back to present continuous tense form. So the sentence, the lion is killing the deer. So if we take a look at the sentence, we'll see that the verb is killing is in present continuous tense. So the verb here is in present continuous tense. So when we change it into passive voice, so again the same rules apply here as well. The subject goes to the object's place and the object of active voice moves to the subject's place in passive voice. And apart from that, the auxiliary now is, since the sentence is in continuous form and it's in present continuous form, so we will write is as it is. Then the new auxiliary being is added, right? So children, don't get confused between B-E-I-N-G, being, and B-E-E-N, being. Being is used in the perfect form, right? Which we'll do right after this. So being gets added here, and then again the same thing. the third form of the main verb, and the preposition by. So the passive form is the deer is being killed by the lion. Now the same sentence, when we change it into uh, uh, past continuous form, the lion was killing the deer. So here we see that the verb is in past continuous tense. So again, let's apply the rules. The deer, which is the object in active voice, becomes the subject, and the lion, which is the subject of active voice, becomes the object, right? And then the helping verb was, which is already there because the verb is in continuous form and past continuous tense. So was is used here as well. Then the new auxiliary, that is the new helping verb, being, is added. Then the third form of the tense, that is the past participle form, third form of the verb, which is the past participle form of the verb, gets added, changes, and then the preposition by is added, and then sentence becomes complete. So the sentence in passive voice is the deer was being killed by the lion, right? So these are the two forms in continuous tense, that is present continuous tense and past continuous tense. There is no passive voice for future continuous tense. Now let us move ahead to the perfect forms. So the three forms of perfect tense are present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect, right? So in these sentences, let's see how to change active voice to passive voice. So the lion has killed the deer. Here we see that the verb has killed is in present perfect tense. So again, let's change the sentence as per the rule. The object becomes the subject of passive voice, and the subject of passive voice active voice becomes the object of passive voice, right? And now as per rule, has killed changes to has been killed. Now, since the sentence is in perfect tense, has remains the same. Since it's in present perfect, so has remains the same. And then the new auxiliary, been, B-E-E-N, been is added. And the main verb in third form, that is the past participle form. So here we don't need to make a change because in perfect tense, the main verb remains in past participle form only, that is the third form only. So the main verb also remains the same here, that is in the past perfect tense, past participle form, right? And then the preposition by is added. So the sentence in passive form is the deer has been killed by the lion. Similarly, let us take at the past perfect tense form. So the sentence, the lion had killed the deer, here the verb is in past perfect tense. So how do we change? All the rules remain the same. So the deer had been killed by the lion. So had remains the same. Then a new auxiliary is added, that is been, and the third form of the verb and the preposition by, and then the object. So the passive form is the deer had been killed by the lion, right? And then finally the future perfect tense. The lion will have killed the deer. Here the verb is in future perfect tense, will have killed. So how do we change? Again, the same rule is applicable. The deer, which is the object of active voice, becomes the subject of the passive voice, and the lion, which is the subject of the active voice, becomes the object of the passive voice. And then let us see the rest of the rules. Now will is already here. So since it's in future perfect tense, will is there and it will, as it is, be there in passive form as well. Then have, again the same here. Now new auxiliary, been is there. Then the third form of the verb, the main verb in its past participle form. Then the preposition by, and then the lion, right? So the passive form is the deer will have been killed by the lion, right? So I hope all of you all of you will remember these rules and will definitely remember how to change active voice into passive voice. So with this, I wind up my session. Thank you so much.